Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more of the Great War. On to week 126, and I've given up on the hoodies. It's too warm. It's too warm. So this is the first time where I'm just not wearing a hoodie in I think the last time I did not wear a hoodie in a reaction video, probably all the way back in the first year of doing this. So it's been a while, but. This is the Great War, week 126. They did not pass. The Battle of Verdun ends. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Alright. Really got nothing to add here. Verdun is over. Let's dive in.
It had raged since February. It was now December. In an area just 25 kilometers wide and 10 kilometers deep, hundreds of thousands of men had become casualties of war. I'm talking about the Battle of Verdun, and this week, that battle came to an end.
Woo! We're wooing, right? Maybe.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week saw French General Robert Nivelle take over command of the French army from General Joseph Joffre. The British began a new offensive campaign on the Tigris River.
Ooh, we got zoom-ins now.
The Macedonian front went quiet, but a new French attack began at Verdun on the Western Front. And in Romania, the Central Powers continued pushing the Romanian army eastward.
Wait, are the Allies fighting up there? I thought they were fighting over here.
The Russian army fighting in Romania had set up a defense line from Ramnicu-Sarat to
Ah, yes, they're totally fighting in Romania. They are not in Russian lands.
Braiila on the Danube. At the beginning of the week, though, German Alpenkorps troops took the high ground northwest of
General Kenobi, the high ground.
Ramnicu-Sarat, making the city and that flank untenable in the long run. Russian General Vladimir Sakharov, in command there, told Romanian King Ferdinand that he was going to abandon the city and bring his 20 divisions further north. And indeed, aerial reconnaissance showed that the Russians were digging trench lines behind the Sereth River. But Allied liaison officer Major General Henri Matthias Berthelot goaded Sakharov into staying and making battle at Ramnicu-Sarat. I am not making that up. He really did it. Now, since there was so much traffic on
I think. Maybe. I don't know.
the highway from Ramnicu-Sarat to Fokshani, German General Erich von Falkenhayn thought Sakharov would not actually offer a real battle, just delaying tactics. Here's how it all looked from the German lines south of the city as you look north. The foothills of the Carpathians were to the west, dominating the landscape. East of the city, the river turned northward and headed towards Fokshani. There was a highway that ran alongside the river with marshy ground on both sides. Falkenhayn's plan was going to be to attack heavily from the west, drive the Russians out of the foothills and onto the plain, where they would have to retreat north on the highway. The marshy ground would slow them down, and they'd be exposed and easy pickings. And just in case, he sent several divisions further west to the mountains to seal off any chance of escape to the northwest. And as the week ended, Falkenhayn ordered the advance. There was an advance that took place this week on the Palestine front. On December 22nd, the British captured El Arish. It had been a pretty serious undertaking, with wire roads and
Man, we have not gotten an update on the Egyptian front, I feel like, since 1915.
supply dumps and water stations having to be built all the way from Suez. This took months, and though the Royal Navy protected the men on the left from the sea, they were theoretically exposed on the right to the desert. The capture was kind of an anticlimax, though, as German General Friedrich Kress von Kressenstein,
That's a fucking German name, all right.
commanding the Ottoman forces there, withdrew his troops before the British arrived. But this meant that the Suez Canal was really secure, for there was plenty of water here to supply a garrison that could stop any Ottoman attempt at crossing the desert to hit Suez from the north. It was also a food base for any assaults over the border to Palestine, and the Palestinian campaign was soon going to begin in earnest. And a huge campaign was coming to an end over in the west. The French had launched a second counteroffensive at Verdun at the end of last week, as I said. This counteroffensive began with a 6-day bombardment that sent well over 1 million shells down on the Germans
Damn.
from 827 guns.
Damn.
The French attacked on December 15th at 10 a.m. with 4 divisions and had 4 more in reserve, while the German defenders numbered 5 divisions, but 2 of them were down below half strength. The French did something interesting here. They attacked with a double creeping barrage, with shrapnel from the field guns 70 meters in front of the infantry as it advanced, and high explosive shells 150 meters in front of the men, but also a steady shrapnel barrage on the second German lines to cut off retreat or reinforcements. The German frontline
Why did no one think to do this sooner? What? Okay.
defenses were shattered, and of the roughly 21,000 men in those 5 divisions, well over half were lost, most of those taken prisoners since they were trapped under cover and under fire until the French infantry arrived. The weather was terrible, but still, the French recaptured Vacheroville and Louvemont, which had been lost to the Germans in the early days of the battle in February. The Germans had big problems bringing up their reserves, and indeed, 2 counterattack divisions that had been ordered to the front the night before were still over 20 kilometers away at noon.
Damn.
By the night of the 16th, the French lines stood from Bezonvaux to Côte-du-Poivre. This was several kilometers beyond Douaumont and 1 kilometer north of Fort Vaux. The nearest German position to Verdun itself was now over 7 kilometers away, and the French had taken 11,387 prisoners and 115 guns in the attack. So many prisoners, in fact, that when captured German officers complained about the conditions in captivity, French General Charles Mangin told them, "We do regret it, gentlemen, but we did not expect so many of you."
Yeah.
Verdun was
Got
safe.
'em.
Exactly 1 year to the day after the Kaiser had approved Falkenhayn's plans for Operation Gericht, December 18th, the counteroffensive ended. The Battle of Verdun was over. There would be sporadic fighting there for the remainder of the war, but technically, it was over. It had run for 299 days. German propaganda, of course, downplayed the significance of losing Forts Douaumont and Vaux, but the German army took it as a serious defeat. Chief of Staff Paul von Hindenburg said this of the retaking of Douaumont: "On this occasion, the enemy hoisted us with our own petard. We could only hope that in the coming year, he would not repeat the experiment on a greater scale and with equal success." This was a major French victory, no question. Nevilles'
Darn
creeping
tootin'.
barrage was very obviously one of the great innovations of the war. But you know, even the December
And why did it take till the near end of 1916 to discover a double creeping barrage? Like, why did no one think to do that sooner?
counteroffensive came at a heavy
Then again, I didn't really think of it, but like, when it's pointed out, it just seems so obvious. Like, I mean, I'm not a general. I'm not trained. I'm not educated in this. These men their careers are around winning wars. And they didn't think of that sooner?
cost, 47,000 casualties, and French Commander-in-Chief Robert Nevilles and Mangin's determination to achieve their goals at all costs showed that the Army of France was now a scarred army. When French President Raymond Poincaré arrived to decorate the troops, rocks were thrown at his car.
Yeah.
One night in December, an entire French division preparing for the last offensive began bleating like sheep. Scenes like these carried notes of ominous foreboding for 1917. But the French public didn't see this. They celebrated like crazy, and they even had a new hero. Joseph Joffre was no longer in charge, and no longer the public darling. Philippe Pétain's role at Verdun and all his preparations for the counterstrokes were overlooked. Nivelle was now top dog. He had been an artillery colonel in 1914, and he was now the top commander 2 winters later. And
Nice.
winter was clamping down everywhere.
Winter is coming.
Winter weather had put a stop to any major activities on the Eastern Front, but this week in the southeast, it flared briefly into life. The Germans began a fairly extensive offensive near Great and Little Porsk, around 30 kilometers southeast of Kovel, taking the Russian positions there and holding them against counterattacks. There were also engagements near Tarnopol, but the winter soon put a stop to all of this, and the front quieted down once again. And here are some notes to round out the week. On the 21st, Count Heinrich Clam-Martin becomes new Austrian Prime Minister, and the following day, Count Czernin becomes their Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now, we've seen a lot of turmoil in Greece over the past few weeks, and there were a few incidents of note there this week too. On the 17th, a warrant was issued for the arrest of Eleftherios Venizelos, the leader of the provisional government. His government, as opposed to that of the king, was officially recognized by Britain on the 20th. On the 21st, an Allied note was sent to the royalists in Greece demanding control of the post, the telegraphs, and the railway.
Dude, the Allies, you guys aren't garnering much sympathy here in Greece. What the fuck?
And that was the week. More conflict in Greece, the beginnings of conflict on the Palestinian front, winter ending life on the Eastern Front, the Germans going on the move again in Romania, and the end of the Battle of Verdun. 300 days. Okay, 299 days. That's how long the Battle of Verdun lasted. The longest battle of the war, and pretty much the longest battle of history so far. This was something new. Casualty estimates vary widely between sources, from a low of around 600,000 for both sides combined to a high of nearly 1 million. But for 10 months of battle, you're still looking at 70,000 men a month. What could be worse than that? Well, the War of Movement had been worse than that in the fall of 1914 in numbers of the dead and wounded. Around 1.5 million French and German casualties in the first 4 months of the war. So by those standards, this was an improvement.
Woo!
Think that through. This was an improvement. This was modern war.
Yay!
There's considerable debate about Falkenhayn's true intentions at Verdun, and if you'd like to know more about the
No, that was they did not pass. The Battle of Verdun ends the Great War, week 126. Got nothing to add here at the end. This was a good episode. Lots of stuff happening. Very exciting. We got an update on the Egyptian front, which I don't think we've had, in a long time. So it was nice to get that. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.